A Lake with Cloudy Sky by Makarand Joshi. The color scheme for the picture with red, black, yellow, green, violet, and gray. The tonal values. In this picture, you'll see the effect of oozing light, cloudy sky, darkness, and the flow of the color. So, as I do in most of my paintings, I'm going to use wet and wet technique. So, the area I intend to paint is wet. Even in this case, it's wet. I'm using various colors like a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Sometime somewhere raw umber also, and raw sienna as well. Okay, so it's the wet area or the wet surface of paper and the brushwork that is creating magic. I'm allowing water to flow as it flows, and I'm just putting some dabs of colors. Please notice that I'm leaving some white area. It's going to give a very soft effect to the sky. And since the main subject of this painting is actually the rainy season or the dampness in the atmosphere, this effect and the color scheme, as well as the treatment of treating it with softness, is going to help. Even changing the angle at which you hold your paper is going to make a lot of difference. So here intentionally I'm using gravity to allow water to do its work, and that's mingling colors into each other softly. If your color runs into an area where you don't intend it to move or enter, then always keep a brush, preferably a round brush, a smaller number, say 4 to 5. Keep it handy. It's really very handy. However, even a tissue paper is also a good option. However, I feel brush is better for my technique. But of course, maybe a tissue paper can do justice to your technique. So you just have to explore what kind of tools and mediums and materials are congruent with your style. The important thing is effect. And voila, we are ready with this effect. The colors are mingling and the flows are very clearly visible. And now again we have laid down the painting flat, you know, horizontal. uh, and then we are just that's the reason why the color is spreading but not flowing in a particular direction, because now we are not using gravity. Previously for the sky we used it, now we don't want. Also notice how somewhere it's framing very sharp white edges. So you need to be able to control your brush as well as the flow of water, because the flow of water counts in the total effect, especially in watercolors. See, now I'm leaving some sharp lines. Of course, the reason is that I have not made the entire thing wet in case of the ground. I mean, the area that I'm painting now. But for sky, if you remember, I had made the entire sky area wet. And now the things that I don't want to, stand out very clearly, I repeat, the things I do not want to stand out pretty clearly are the areas which are still wet, and I'm working in that area so that ultimately, after the painting is over, they do not retain their contour or outline. Right now, they are there, they are visible, but they are going to get mingled into each other. All the maroon patches, the green ones, everything. So it's basically the sharp and soft edges that do the entire uh, play over here. And then we have got a color which I have not used previously. So usually, as far as this color scheme goes, or the aspect of creating some visual effect goes, there could be a single or two colors that are sparingly used, but they are strategically used. That ultimately, as a result, attract the attention of the viewer. In this case, it's cerulean blue and ultramarine blue, water. And basically, see, please remember, there is blue in sky as well, but that's ultramarine blue mixed with some other browns. The water I'm doing now, there I've used pure cerulean and ultramarine, so it retains its, if I may say, blueness. So these are the things that you learn with practice and more practice only. So the approach I'm going to use while painting this picture is from big to small and from soft to short. For example, I mean, I'll just elaborate what I mean by that. If you remember, painted the sky first, which was a very big area. And now I'm painting smaller houses, smaller shapes. So be it house or bushes or maybe some details uh, in water or on ground, whatever it is. I've just divided into two parts, bigger shapes and smaller shapes. So now I'm dealing with smaller shapes because I'm done already with the bigger ones. And also notice that I'm using a very small brush, which I always use for detailing. So it's from vague to specific, or again from soft to sharp, or in other words, from big to small. I'm talking in terms of shapes and sharpness. As I'm telling, please notice I'm using smaller dots and lines, and some of them are going to retain their shape, but some are not, and which is perfectly okay because I have designed the painting in such a manner that even if certain things I need to compromise, as actually every watercolor artist has to, because watercolor basically water is very fluid, and then you cannot control 100%, I mean, water, and as a result watercolor painting. However, that's the reason why a watercolor artist has to plan it more in detail before you actually start painting, because you know somewhere some areas are going to be tricky, and believe me, I've been doing it for years together, and certain areas, whether I'm doing plein air, that's doing at the spot, or doing in studio, certain things, especially in case of watercolors, are not completely under our control compared to other mediums, because watercolor is actually very good for experiments, but certain times the experiments that you don't intend to do take place while you're performing. I mean, while you're painting, it's a kind of performance, especially in case of watercolor. So yes, it's a part and parcel of your job, and then you need to keep the show going. So coming back to the painting once again, still I'm doing smaller shapes and I'm using smaller number brush and making very small shapes. Now that's what I mean by using sharp objects as an element of interest at the later stage, and that later stage is now because we are done with the entire background. If you know, if you look at the painting, especially the background at this stage, you'll notice that we are done with the entire background, and now we are working on details, uh, not specifically details, but in order to create some contrast we are using some sharp shapes. And then always, be it any medium, brush strokes is a kind of it's a type of dance. You just dance on your paper as an artist, and brush strokes is such a wonderful feeling to use your brush freely, and yet to be able to figure out, yet to be able to paint some picture that a viewer can figure out that yes, this resembles to say a tree or say a cloud. In this case, I'm painting a tree, but notice I'm enjoying this process because I'm not really, that concerned about the outcome, because I'm sure that is going to be very beautiful. And the reason for that is that it's creating a contrast, a very specific type of contrast. In fact, two types. First is dark against light. The shape of the tree is dark, and the background, both the ground and the sky, is light. And another type of contrast is sharp against soft. See, um, uh, all these smaller dots, they are very sharp. I mean, in tree, and then the sky and the ground, it's soft. So as against soft, you got very sharp. As against light, you got very dark shape. And the final outcome, followed by different stages of this painting: the drawing, the background, a few more details in ground, and the tree. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, then please do so by hitting the red subscribe button. And do not forget to leave a comment below. Till we meet next time, I wish you all happy painting.